Johnson Senior Charitable Trust. They provided home energy upgrades to 9 low and moderate income homes in Princeton. You just saw the video on what we're doing with Seal Power and the energy audits. I have to tell you, we just finished the remediation in my house, and my kids told me yesterday, for the first time in their 11 and 13 years respectively, they went to sleep in a draft-free bedroom. So clearly they're doing, whatever they're doing it well, and it's working. And thanks to the folks at Princeton University, that was one of 2 videos that you saw because of funds from them. So I have to thank them as well. We have a great waste committee, and they received some funding from Sustainable Jersey to help support the curbside composting that we just talked about, to work with the local businesses to look for how can we recycle better here in downtown, provide space. Because one of the things we've heard is there's just no space to recycle if you're a downtown business, so we're working with the municipality on how to improve that. And the few recycle bins that you actually have seen in downtown in 2013 was because of a grant or donation that we asked for from the Mercer County Improvement Authority to provide some recycle bins. So just, sometimes small steps, but ultimately that makes a difference. We've got a Green School Coalition that's been working hard, worked with the schools and the Board of Ed to work on a green schools resolution on getting composting done in the schools. And now I believe all the public schools now here in Princeton do compost their food waste, and some of them actually have school gardens where some of that material goes to as well. And I believe Anthony Tang tonight is being honored for helping out in that respect, for leading that in some respects. We've got a municipal green team working on making Princeton what was called Silver Certified with Sustainable Jersey. We've recognized that we've got to get the word out more. We love seeing you, but we want to see this room with 150 people next time. So we've created a communications committee. And we've created the Green Corps, Community Outreach and Residential Engagement, which Alexandria here is a part of, and is helping to spearhead. Holding monthly meetings, social outreach, social media. If you look at the number of people who come to the website over the last year or two, it's been, I think, over 15,000, I was told. And so a lot of that, again, is because of folks like Andrea and Core and our staff who are kind of trying to find ways to reach out to the community. So clearly a lot going on, and I'm delighted to be honoring the accomplishments of the folks we have here this evening who are trying to make a difference. But with that, I'm going to hand this over to the MCs, one of Sustainable Princeton's founders, Wendy Kozerski, and our mayor, who has the political will to make this a priority. So.
Hi, nice to see you all here. When Sustainable Princeton, can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay. When Sustainable Princeton launched these leadership awards back in 2006, we had a fairly challenging time finding nominees. Back then, terms like polar vortex, fracking, were not so much in our lexicon. We're not in our lexicon, actually. The terms global warming, climate change, and sustainability were on our radar, but not close enough for dinner time conversations, at least not at my house. The Coca-Cola company was not so worried about losing its contract to make Coke in Africa because of a water shortage. And Nike was not so worried about a cotton shortage affecting its ability to make athletic wear products. In 8 years, since 2006, climate change has changed our world so much faster and in so many more ways than predicted. So much so that now, according to a New York Times article last week, Coca-Cola and Nike are sufficiently worried about the effect of climate change on their bottom line to make them in favor of carbon tax. Having that on the first page of the New York Times is really big news. Well, we're all worried. I think we all in this room are worried, not so much about our bottom line, but about the quality of life for our children and our future generations. Tonight, however, Sustainable Princeton is focused on recognizing the actions being taken to address those worries. Actions by individuals, actions by organizations, and businesses to address the pressing environmental problems we face at the local and at the global levels. Tonight's awardees are our local environmental heroes. As I review their award certificates tonight, I thought of a quote that I read in Pete Seeger's obituary in the New York Times a few days ago. He reportedly remained optimistic throughout his activism on behalf of civil and environmental rights. And this is his attributed quote. "The key to the future of the world," he said in 1994, "is finding the optimistic stories and letting them be known." Tonight, we have 10 people whose stories we are letting be known so that we can remain optimistic about becoming a more sustainable community. Their stories, as you'll hear more about in just a few minutes, are about using, not music like Pete Seeger, but about these things: chainsaws, purchasing power, hammers, renewable energy, nails, innovative collaboration, wood pallets, farm fresh local food, edible schoolyards, after-school cooking classes, grassroots activism, and civic duty. To manage our town's waste, to reduce our use of fossil fuels, to promote food literacy, to conserve open space, and to promote smart growth. We've come a long way since 2006. We had 18 nominees this year. I expect we'll have more next year. I want to have more next year. So with that, I'd like to introduce our Honorable Mayor, Liz Lambert, who will say a few words before we get on to the stories. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I want to welcome you all here. This is one of my favorite events of the year because it reminds me what a remarkable community we live in. And I always learn about some cool new project happening in town that I had no idea was happening. And I get to see old friends, and I get to meet new, interesting people who are leaving a positive mark on our town and on our world. Before we get to the main event of recognizing this year's award winners, I want to thank Sustainable Princeton and all the work that you do. You help our community be greener, more efficient, and more innovative. And one of the great things you do is help make connections between knowledge and resources and needs. Tonight's a prime example. Even those of us who are well immersed in sustainability will likely learn something new. Or meet someone who we might be able to collaborate with, and it's likely all of us will leave feeling inspired. Princeton has made great strides on the sustainability front over the last several years, and we continue to make progress. We were the first town in New Jersey to offer curbside organic composting pickup. It's a great program. My guess is that pretty much everybody in this room is already signed up, but if you're not and you're interested in finding out how to do it, you can contact me after the program. Be happy to hook you up. Sustainable Princeton, as you heard in the video, has launched an energy saving program with Still Power. Whether you're a business or a homeowner, you can sign up to get low-cost energy audit and sign up the best ways to insulate your home and to stay warmer for cheaper, which sounds really attractive to me tonight, because you're using less energy. As you all know, Princeton Township and Princeton Borough consolidated a little over a year ago, January 1st, 2013. We were the first major consolidation in the state of New Jersey in nearly a century. And consolidation was innovative. It made our government less wasteful and more financially sound. And it set us on a more sustainable path. On our agenda in the coming year or two is going to be looking at we have a complete streets policy on paper, but we need to implement it on the ground. And that means making sure every street is built not just for drivers in mind, but for pedestrians, for bikers, and where appropriate for transit. We're going to be greening the municipal fleet, And we're going to be working with Sustainable Princeton to make recycling easier and available downtown, among many other projects. Princeton has the brain power to be innovators of sustainability, and we will see that clearly tonight as Wendy and I introduce you to our award winners. And we also have the will to make it happen. I keep going back to the motto of Sustainable Princeton, which is change your habits and change your world. And it reminds me we've been trying with municipal events that we have to make them zero waste. And we had a small little birthday party when we turned 1 year old, or our anniversary. I'm not sure if it was a birthday or anniversary. And we set up the curbside composting bin, and we didn't really make a big deal about it. It was just there, and it became, that's what we do when we have an event. And I think that's ultimately where we want to be, where if you don't need an organization like Sustainable Princeton, that it just becomes a part of every decision that you make, and everything that you do becomes second nature. We're not quite there yet, so we really need all the work that's going on in this room. And we thank you for that. And I don't want to hold it any longer. We should go do these works. So our first award goes to Sandy Moskowitz.
And she is not here, I'm sorry, I
Oh.
told you, she's still today, but Stephanie Chorney's going to accept the award for her.
Okay, well, you can still.
There's Steph, here she is.
And Sandy Moskowitz is a parent volunteer at Community Park Elementary School. Changing habits and norms is difficult, especially when it comes to greening our public schools. But Sandra Moskowitz, a parent volunteer, has successfully created new norms and habits for students, teachers, and staff through her efforts to create awareness of recycling and composting at Community Park Elementary School. As the room parent coordinator and co-chair of the Go Green Committee, Ms. Moskowitz worked with the PTO to equip all 18 classrooms with a reusable party basket, complete with tablecloths, plates, bowls, cups, and utensils. In her role as co-chair of the Go Green Committee, Ms. Moskowitz also helped create a school green guide replete with tips to promote sustainability in the classroom and beyond. The guide is now being used as a model at Littlebrook Elementary School and elsewhere in the community. These efforts serve as an inspiration for individual action and a model for other schools and organizations. We are pleased to present Ms. Moskowitz with this award tonight.
I know Sandy thanks you all, and it's very sad that she couldn't be here. She is under the weather, and her family also is helping her recover, so they are not here tonight. But she has prepared something that I would like to read on my phone. Pardon me. Thank you so much for including me in this group of extremely talented and committed group of citizen activists who helped make Princeton such a special place. For those of you who may not be familiar with the elementary school social scene, it's a whirlwind of celebrations. Halloween, winter holidays, Valentine's Day, year-end festivals, and many other events which call for parties. All of these celebrations came with class parties that resulted in mounds and mounds of garbage. As the room parent for my son's then first grade class, I refused to buy into this. So for each party, my stalwart husband Ray and I would haul into class real plates, cups, utensils, tablecloths, and napkins, because I wanted to see if we could meet the challenge of a zero-waste class party. The teacher was game, and while the kids at first were a bit confused as to what to do with their table settings because they didn't match the holidays being celebrated, they got into the spirit of things, including tossing their leftovers into a bag that we took home for a backyard compost bin, because back then you couldn't compost in the schools. By the start of the next year, all 18 classes had a reusable party basket with support from our parent-teacher organization. The only throwaway items parents would need to purchase were napkins, no curbside composting at that point, and the PTO offered to reimburse any parent who purchased cloth napkins for their classroom. We have since added bowls and large plates to our inventory of reusables. Why do I do this? I'm sure everyone knows the story of the boy on the beach who was surrounded by starfish who washed up. There he sits, throwing one starfish back into the ocean at a time. And when a passerby tells him that it won't make a difference, the boy holds up yet another starfish and says, "It will make a difference to this one." and then promptly throws the starfish back in the litter. I know that I can't save all the starfish by myself, but perhaps I can convince enough passerbys the importance of trying. We'll someday get all those starfish back into the litter. Finally, I'd like to say that this honor really goes to my husband for always hauling all the stuff back and forth from school, and to my son, who is on the beach getting all those starfish back into the water as fast as he can. Thank you so much for including me, and everyone stay healthy.
We have another guest coming from afar.
It is his work tantalizing the taste buds of Princeton's school children that we want to recognize today. As a guest chef for Garden State on Your Plate, Farm to School initiatives, and other school efforts, Chef Albrecht inspires students, teachers, and parents alike. He passionately lives food and has helped hundreds of Princeton students think beyond the supermarket aisles when asked, "Where does your food come from?" We are honored to present you with the Sustainable Princeton Leadership Award. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I think we have our first awardee who's here. So Bill Cirillo, the principal of Riverside Elementary School. When tending a garden, there are many factors that help seeds grow. Principal Cirillo has supported environmental projects at Riverside School for over 25 years. According to one parent, he does this by, quote, continually encouraging staff, students, and parents to dream big. Aside from a thriving garden that serves as a model for schools across the state, the school hosts the annual Healthy Children, Healthy Planet Fair for the community, which raises funds to support educational programs in the garden. Principal Cirillo continues to open the door to innovation and sustainable behavior. It is with great admiration that we present Mr. Cirillo an award tonight for his distinguished service with regard to sustainability.
Thank you. Well, thank you so very much. This is a wonderful evening for me and for certainly all of us. And as a guy whose family's been here for over 300 years, so Princeton sustained it pretty well over time. So that's a true story. Our family's been here for a long time. So it's a great pleasure for me to stand in front of you tonight and say thank you so very much to your group for recognizing primarily our school and its people. We have a remarkable place at Riverside School. It's just, and I think that's part of this. When we talk about sustainability, it's people who do this. And it's the beautiful community and the surroundings there that allow us to do the good works that we do. So it starts many years ago. It maybe starts with an idea from others, or maybe I had some small part in generating that to a larger idea. But the idea of Riverside being a place of big ideas and being a place of warmth for people is really an incredible concept. And so part of, we are educators over there. And so part of it is about building beautiful and rich and curious and responsible ways for kids to see themselves in the world. And so the idea of bringing gardens and bringing all this environmental thoughtfulness to our place of study and our place of communications is a natural for us. And I know my work, and I think of it over time, is what is really my work is really to build good environments and healthy environments for people to thrive. Whether or not it's in an educational setting inside that classroom or it's an educational setting outside that classroom. So we embrace that in our school, and we found so many wonderful ways in which to kind of connect ourselves to one another, and as a result of connecting ourselves to one another, we've developed these beautiful grounds and beautiful school, and more than that, these children that think of their responsibilities with regard to the environment and regard to one another. And I know Anthony's sitting over there, and I know Anthony was part of an orchid club that I started a number of years ago. And I just got this passion for orchids many years ago and started thinking, well, how in the world am I going to be able to grow these? because everybody scared me to death about growing orchids. Because you can't grow them. Well, yes, you can. And so I was talking with Anthony tonight, and he said, it's been 7 years now? 7 or 8 years? His orchid is still growing. So I'm so proud of you for doing that. So we're a place that, you know, it could go back to Joni Dabbs, who one of our community folks to help us develop the interior gardens. And then, of course, now our lovely and beautiful Dorothy Mullen, who has done so very much for us and embraced our kids, and along with our teachers who have done that. So really, I guess my message here tonight is that it's something that we value. It's become a natural outgrowth of what we value in terms of what kids learn, how we integrate it to what they learn. And if you read about what we've done with our math studies and our science studies and our social studies, we look at it as a way to make those great integrations and great ways for kids to gain appreciation for the world about them. Because ultimately, it's all about people. And it's all about people living in environments that they enjoy and they love and they take responsibility for. So that's where we've come from. So the richness of that is something that we love and adore at our school every day. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Beth, who's been my buddy over there for years in developing these and developing Healthy Children, Healthy Planet. And we welcome you to be part of our learning and part of our teaching. We find that responsibility within our town and as it extends across the state. And we've been very fortunate to have so many people come into our school over time. We had the agricultural commissioner there some couple years ago on Dorothy's invitation to embrace this beautiful thing that your group has allowed us to participate in, to see. So thank you so very much. I'm very honored by this. I can't tell you. I was so surprised by it. And I've had so many wonderful people come up and say, "Oh, Bill." And I said, "No, not oh, Bill. Oh, Riverside community and Princeton community for being such a beautiful place that allows us to think big and to think responsibly about what we do." So thank you very much.
Our next recipient is Lauren Gully, who is a student at the Princeton Theological Seminary. Lauren Gully exemplifies how a single person can have real impact on an institution. As a student at Princeton Theological Seminary, she volunteered with the school's community service group, showing a dedication and zeal for environmental action. Her efforts were so successful that the seminary hired her as its first student sustainability coordinator in May 2012. Through her leadership, the seminary has implemented a host of sustainable initiatives, including an incentive program for Tiger transit use, a food waste composting program, single stream recycling, a light bulb exchange program offering free CFL bulbs, and advocating that organic and local foods be made available in the campus dining hall. Currently, Ms. Gully is working on organizing Earth Week educational sessions, expanding the seminary's community garden, and instituting a TerraCycle program to recycle and upcycle materials that might typically go to the landfill. We are so pleased to present this award to Ms. Gully this evening.
I would just like to thank Sustainable Princeton for recognizing all these fabulous community leaders, and a special thanks to Wayne Meisel, who's encouraged me as I learn what it's like to work with a bureaucracy. My introduction makes me sound really busy, but I assure you that all the accolade and all the projects she just mentioned were not my work alone, but the work of many people at the Theological Seminary down the street. And I just feel honored to represent my campus and those people tonight. I was hired my first year to be the seminary sustainability coordinator I did my undergrad at UC Berkeley and never realized how sustainable that campus was until I moved to one that was not. And so in that first year, after having several meetings where I'm sure I annoyed a lot of people, I was given the opportunity to serve the seminary in this way. One of the great things about my position at the seminary is that it really gives me an opportunity to teach others and to continue to learn myself what exactly stewardship means, especially in a faith context. The seminary is educating leaders who will be pastors at churches, people who work for nonprofits, and about every other gamut you can think of. And I think it's really important for people to begin to understand how their work and faith can also correspond to how they see the world and how they contribute to the positive effects of it. I know I'm motivated by the joy I have when I'm in nature and eating healthy foods from local farms. And I really just hope that the people I come in contact and the people at the seminary are inspired by that joy and explore that for themselves. So thank you all very much for this award and for being sustainable yourselves. Thank you.
Our next awardee is Callie Hancock, who's a resident and volunteer. Addressing climate change is a particularly difficult task. Most residents wouldn't even know where to begin. Local resident Callie Hancock has figured it out. In the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, Ms. Hancock, in partnership with Huck Fairman, set up the Princeton chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby, an organization committed to empowering citizens to create the political will for stable climate and to empower individuals to have breakthroughs in exercising their personal and political power. Callie is a tireless volunteer and a dedicated and inclusive leader who holds regular letter writing meetings in her home and advocates for action all over the state. She is forging a path in a difficult battle, and we are proud to provide Ms. Hancock with the Sustainable Princeton Leadership Award this evening.
Thank you so much, Mayor Limpert and Sustainable Princeton, and you've taken care of some of my talk, too. And I'm also really glad that I'm not on Skype tonight. I want to thank everyone who's here today, and also the North Pole for coming all this way to visit us, because I won't get there probably. Sustainable Princeton's motto is change a habit and change the world, and what I seem to have done was gotten that at the wrong end. So it's a heavy lift to start with changing the world, but here's how I got there. As we mentioned just now, the superstorm was part of the impetus, but even before that, but too long after the film An Inconvenient Truth, I was beginning to get existentially concerned about global warming / climate change. It seemed like an obviously large problem, the white elephant in the room, invisible, slow-moving, and under-publicized, but overwhelming. I was swimming near my New Jersey shore home of my in-laws in this really weirdly warm Atlantic Ocean last summer and feeling sort of guilty for how enjoyable that was. But of course, related to that, the house soon filled up with a couple of feet of water, and it isn't in our family anymore. So equally, we all had beautiful trees that used to absorb carbon, and they were now lying on our houses. And it just seemed like there was a force beginning to affect us even more directly than it was affecting other parts of the world we weren't as close to. For instance, the Hurricane Irene had really damaged where my brother lived in Vermont, but that was so far away from me. So I was concerned, and I started to think, how will I look my children in the eye, or your children in the eye, if I'm not coping with this problem in some way? what could I do as an individual? What could any of us do? Juggling work, juggling families, and how's I going to be at every pipeline protesting it or every fracking well? It seemed like I was going to have to take the chance of getting arrested, and I wasn't keen on that. So, as I complained about this problem and looked for someone to fix it, my environmentalist neighbor, Huck Fairman, who'd written a book presciently called Noah's Children back a few years ago, suggested that we talk to a local environmental activist, Ellie Whitney, who's a biologist, now retired, but not retired from doing something. So she directed us towards Citizens Climate Lobby, which gives a wonderful Wednesday introductory call. Every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, you can just call in and ask how to save the world, and they'll tell you. And I talked to them. They were so positive. They were so supportive. The apocalyptic talk that I'd been having with myself was just interrupted by this force. So their tagline is political will for a livable world. Their tactics are to focus on getting the free market solution of a carbon tax that's fully rebated to households who consume energy, which is all of us. And they make a lot of noise, but not quite like that. So I knew I'd found the answer to my existential crisis. And I began advertising a group which has been growing all year. It's a year old this January. We gather every month to listen to experts talk on the phone from the worlds of science and activism. And we periodically meet in larger groups. We've gone from 2 New Jersey groups to 5. And each June we go to Congress to lobby, something I never in my whole life thought I'd be doing. But now I know how. Thousands of people are lobbying for the fuel companies, and we need to lobby for a cleaner world. The award I'm getting right now is very gratifying, but I feel it's due to the members of my group. Some stalwarts from the group are here tonight. And I think that it's just because I had to do it. The founder of the Citizens Climate Lobby has been known to say, we are the cavalry, and there's just no choice about it. We'll be going back to our conference in Washington in June. The theme will be Turn Up the Heat on Congress to Cool Off the World. So I'm very grateful to Sustainable Princeton and to all the other awardees for the tangible and measurable ways you've helped us be more sustainable. When you're doing the heavy lift of something like Citizens Climate Lobby, you need those small victories, and we get them. Thank you. And thanks to my family for putting up with my obsession, and thank you all for the wonderful award.
Our next awardee is the Mountain Lakes Holding Corporation. And Eric Tazalar is here to accept this award. The Mountain Lakes Holding Corporation receives this award for fostering a collaborative approach to open space stewardship through its preservation of the Mountain Lakes House. The Mountain Lakes Holding Corporation has overseen and maintained the house in a unique arrangement. I've lost my place. The Mountain Lakes Holding Corporation has overseen and maintained the house in a unique arrangement that benefits the Friends of Princeton Open Space by funding further open space acquisition. The environmentally friendly house hosts events which expose many people to Princeton's natural beauty as well as habitat restoration and sustainable practices. The Mountain Lakes Holding Corporation provides a new model of collaboration for open space areas in Princeton and beyond. We are so happy to present this award to you this evening.
Thanks so much. I should probably start with a confession. This being a sustainable group, I was going to walk here tonight. And then I stepped out on the front porch, and I decided I would die if I don't. I decided to not do that. This is for the corporation. So the first order of business is to point out the rest of the board who's here tonight. Ted Thomas, whose name you heard before, is right up front. Wendy Mager was here. I saw her there. She's back here in the middle. Clark Lennon is, I think he's saving the world someplace. And Archie Reed is probably coaching hockey someplace. In addition to that group, Sally Comerford, who manages our day-to-day operation, was right back there. So I think I was the first one who's not an individual getting on behalf of the group, so state law says I got to mention the entire group first. So I will talk about things that we do nowadays, but I think it's important to start talking about where the corporation came from in the first place. It's hard to believe that 30 years ago, Mountain Lakes, that glorious place where we try to go all the time, was in private hands. It had a terrific history. It had been the location of the ice company, which provided ice right through the summer for Princeton for years and years and years. It was owned by Edgar Palmer from Palmer Stadium and Palmer Square, and I don't know whatever else, but probably some other Palmers. He owned it for years, and he had kind of passive management. People used it for picnics and for enjoying the lakes during the summer. He didn't really touch very much though. But mid-century, Clark family bought it, and they built a beautiful home up on top of the hill overlooking the lakes. Lived there for a while, turned over a couple times, and lo and behold, mid-'80s, it was sort of coming on the market again. And at that time, it was the potential to have it subdivided and to become a new big neighborhood in Princeton was a very real opportunity or threat, depending upon your point of view. Now, I have no doubt it would have been a beautiful subdivision. It's a great property. It would have been fantastic. But we have a lot of nice neighborhoods. We have a lot of nice homes. That's a unique property. Friends of Princeton Open Space had just come off with great victory over the Institute to secure that property. Took on Mountain Lakes as the next project, and secured funding, and with partnership with Princeton was able to get the property under contract and take it out of subdivision. The difficulty was there was a house there, and the township didn't want to take on a house to manage it. So 3 members of the board back then, Rosemary Blair, Lori Kerr, and Tom Cook, came up with a really creative idea. Let's form the Mountain Lakes Holding Corporation, lease it from the township, and manage it, and host parties there, generate revenue, and that's sort of the germ of the idea. I don't know if they knew where it was going to go from there, but that was the germ of the idea. So since then, we, the corporation and those before us who are on the board, have managed to maintain the property through income generated by our rental for parties and such. We have improved the house significantly over the years, but in many ways, I'm not going to list all the accomplishments we were asked not to. But there are three things that touch on sustainability that I think are worthy of mention. One's kind of mundane. 2 years ago, we replaced all the HVAC units, all the heating and all the cooling units. There was a state grant that provided much of the funding we did in cooperation with Princeton. But we used to use 50% more energy than we do now to heat and cool the house. That's simply by modernizing and going to a different system a little bit. But we used to spend $11,000 a year. Now we're spending a little bit over $7,200 a year. So 50% more back then. The money doesn't really relate to the energy usage exactly, but that's a heck of a savings. And I think we're using a lot less energy to keep the house going. Steve Hiltner's here someplace. He was working with us. There's Steve. A couple years ago, Steve led the charge to create a rain garden on this side of the house. We divert the water off the roof, goes around the corner, and we have this fairly large area that has native plants, flowers, and bushes all through the growing season. It's full of birds, it's full of butterflies, and all kinds of little critters. And so we keep the water from flowing out to the lake and flowing downstream. We keep it on site. And we've created this beautiful natural mini ecosystem, I suppose. The other thing we do in terms of our big push on sustainability was we repaired the greenhouse. And repairing the greenhouse, our current naturalist is able to go around the property, collect seeds throughout the year, propagate them in the greenhouse, and we have planted hundreds of native plants throughout the property, while at the same time trying to remove all the invasive species there. We're trying to make it a more natural setting. We are battling it out with deer, but we've created 4 deer exclosure areas where they're all fenced out rather. So and that's where we're trying to get all the natural plants to come back. So that's our efforts on sustainability lately. Now, so what's kind of neat about it is that in generating the revenue, we're able to maintain the house, and paint the interior, and paint the exterior, just keep the place going right. But we're also able to upstream quite a bit of money to Friends of Princeton Open Space, which then uses the money for its good purposes. Since 2000, we've been able to upstream almost $300,000, and we're going to continue to do that going forward unless we can find some way to cook books. So the other question is, why do I do it? Well, first, I like the board. We've got 5 people who are, well, 4 of whom at least are good and smart and fun to work with. And I think we're a very effective group, which makes the meetings kind of fun. I think we are doing something good for the community in running the Mountain Lakes House. And personally, I like working with contractors, and I particularly like it when I don't have to spend my own money in order to do it. So those are all that's sort of stuff that's behind the broad picture. We started with good intentions, saved all those acres from development, and we've been able to maintain it all these years. So we owe thanks to the former board. I'll take thanks on behalf of the group now. And I'll also say that, on a personal thing, everybody here is volunteering, and I always wonder how somebody gets into volunteering. But my mom's over there in the front row, and she had a working career as a teacher, helping kids with learning problems. They would take a jumble of letters and make them into words and make them into paragraphs and figure them out, which, it's a job. That's the type of volunteer thing. She raised 3 boys. That's enough volunteering for anybody right there. But she's been on every board at All Saints Church in the last 40 years. She's done everything but paint the sanctuary. She does Meals on Wheels. She was the secretary for the Women's College Board, something like that until very recently. I don't know. She has a lifetime of giving back to the community. I don't think people just come out of nowhere. We all have models that try to, I think, whether we realize it or not at the time, inspire us. And it's a happy coincidence, but I don't think it's an accident that my brother is also being recognized tonight. So it all comes from somewhere. So while you're saying thank you to me, just you can also say thanks to Mom.
Our next award goes to 2 people, Olin Kalkas and Duke Weiser. We applaud the Princeton Academy of the Sacred Heart today for its conversion to the use of geothermal energy in more than 80% of its academic spaces, setting an example for other schools and institutions. In pursuit of one of the Sacred Heart goals of educating to social awareness, which impels to action, Princeton Academy embarked on a $12 million renovation to the interior of its academic spaces. The school installed 40 geothermal wells for heating and cooling, dramatically decreasing its carbon footprint. With further plans for solar panels, the Academy's end goal is net zero energy use. Installing geothermal technology is a big investment, but the investment they have made to teach sustainable actions to students is the type of long-term learning that will last. We are so pleased to honor the Princeton Academy of the Sacred Heart this evening with the Sustainable Princeton Leadership Award.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Sustainable Princeton for this honor. But more importantly, I'd like to thank Sustainable Princeton for the work you do and everyone else here that's being honored. And I know many of you in the audience for all the work you do, because in the end, we do what we do because it's important. The honor just helps us spread the word to other people. Princeton Academy of the Sacred Heart, hopefully many of you know it, but we're only 15 years old. Some of you don't. It's 15 years old. We're very blessed with a beautiful campus. It's the former Our Lady of Princeton Convent, 50 wonderful, beautiful acres, and it was an ideal place to really put into action one of the other goals that's embedded in our mission, which is to teach our community, not just our young boys, our young gentlemen, but our community to be stewards of the earth's resources. So since the beginning of the Academy's existence, there's always been a focus, and I'm going to use the word "we" a lot because there are a number of people that are involved. There are the leaders, but the leaders have brought other people along, whether it's in the faculty, in the parent body, or on the board. But we focused on being good stewards, and I would say from in the beginning in 1999, the most common word that was used in sustainability was recycle. Those of us, I'm sure, in this room actually know that reduce and reuse is more important than the recycling. We have to reduce consumption and reuse things. And that's part of what we did. Princeton Academy has not taken down any buildings. We decided that we would renovate, we would turn a convent into a school for boys. I invite anybody to come visit to see how we did it. We looked at the beautiful campus, and we wanted to reduce certain footprints. We've actually eliminated that. We have less asphalt covering now than we did when we bought the property. And at every step of the school's growth, we would look at things that we could do that would serve as examples to the boys and to the community of our commitment to this stewardship. So we switched from oil to gas. When we built a gymnasium, we didn't have a lot of money, but we could do things like sink it into the ground, which was our first attempt at passive geothermal by putting a little bit into the ground. We put north-facing large windows so that light is brought into the gym, and on many days we don't need to put on any lights in the gym to be able to function in the gym. We intentionally designed an asymmetrical roof so that there's a much longer southern-facing roof. This is where we hope in the future to put solar panels. And all of this are things that we had conversations about, and we would point out to the boys that became a part of their education. At one point, we actually found a design for a geodesic dome greenhouse that used a large water tank as a heat sink, and it basically can function in the winter when it's this cold. I'm not sure how well. I haven't been in it lately, but even when it gets into the 30s, you can have 80 degree, 70 degree temperature because it faces south and absorbs heat. Little did I know at the time that the geodesic dome was going to serve as our model for this is how heat transfer works. And when we built our geothermal wells, we could take the boys and say, this is just a large version. The Earth is a huge heat sink, and we're actually doing the 3 R's with the geothermal well project. We reduced our carbon footprint, and we reused the sun's resources because the heat sink is coming in, and actually there's a little bit of recycling because there's a glycol fluid that cycles through that releases the heat in the summer and the cold in the winter as it goes through. So and at all times we work hard to educate our boys in the process. They come up with their own projects. I see one of our faculty members, Sherry Verdue, is here. She was one of our lead faculty members in starting green groups with our students. They've begun projects from recycling to measuring how much waste there is in our lunches, encouraging lunches where the boys would go home and tell their parents, I want everything to be able to be reused, to be repacked rather than plastic baggies. Use a plastic container that can be taken home. I think it's very important to change behavior, and I love your slogan about changing habits, because that's the big challenge. I'll mention only one more thing, because the geothermal is what has become very well known in the community. As part of our renovation project, we made decisions, and I think that's part of the process, making thoughtful decisions all the time. We wanted to be able to have a water fountain that you could also put a water bottle under and refill, so we could encourage students to stop bringing plastic throwaway bottles to school. And we had choice, and we made a choice. It's a little more expensive, but there's these wonderful water fountains that actually have a counter on it, so that as you put a water bottle under it, the number of bottles that you save from the landfill tick up. And to me, that was one of the most wonderful moments when I heard some boys early on, as we moved into our renovated wing this year, watch that and say, wow, I'm gonna tell my mom to stop sending in the juice boxes, stop. I wanna get a water bottle that I can fill up and use. So I think it's changing those kinds of habits that will make a difference. Lastly, I would say none of this would be possible without the support of our board of trustees, because there are times, I know, in the early days when maybe some ideas like the roof and other things might have seemed a little bit crazy. And I'd like to acknowledge and hand over the microphone to Duke Weiser, who is one of our trustees, and I would say more than one of our trustees. What's always helpful to any head of school is if he or she can find a champion on the board. And I would definitely say that Duke Weiser is the champion on our board of moving our board to sustainable practices as well. So thank you, Duke.
The problem with talking second or even eighth, I guess, is that all the good stories have been told. But, so I think Olin sort of told it, but I mean, I just like to say that it's a privilege to be able to work on projects that are, both transformative for the school and benefit the community as a whole. And it's especially fun because we get to look at, a 30-year horizon rather than a 3-month horizon. And, we should always do that, but we don't always get to. So, thanks.
Our next awardee is Anthony Tang, a high school senior and Eagle Scout. Many of today's recipients have been environmental advocates longer than our next recipient has been alive. Anthony Tang, a senior at Princeton High School, was inspired by Sustainable Princeton's blueprint to build compost bins out of recycled pallets. So he dedicated his Eagle Scout project to sustainability and built compost bins at 4 public schools, Princeton University, and at area homes. He also advocated for the municipal curbside organic composting program by writing and publishing letters to the editor in the local paper. In an age when most kids have their hands on digital devices, Mr. Tang used wood, hammer, and nails to provide a sustainable composting option to the community. As one leadership award judge succinctly put it, Anthony is our future. We are so happy to provide Mr. Tang with a Sustainable Leadership Award this evening.
Well, I have to admit I'm guilty of not having a long and eloquent speech like everyone else because I am in the middle of midterm week at PHS, so I'm very surprised to see Landis and Nancy here as well. Anyway, the one thing I feel I should mention about these 2 projects is that these projects were a culmination of people, and this would not have happened at all without the countless people who worked on it. And just standing here, I can see people who this project would not have happened without. Of course, Heidi Fichtenbaum, who actually designed these compost bins, and Diane Landis, who runs Sustainable Princeton, the reason I did this, as well as Amy Mayer from Littlebrook and Stephanie Shorney from Community Park. They were the garden organizers at their schools, and really, I can't imagine that this project would have happened if they had not been there. Likewise, for the other project with the curbside composting, I wouldn't have been involved whatsoever if it actually hadn't been for Anna Lyles, who actually introduced me to the working group on it, as well as Alexandra Parr-Cohen, who was also leading it. So honestly, I feel like this award should really go to all of the people who made it possible, because I feel like I just took all the things that were already there and just put them together. It was almost a project that was completed before I started. Anyway, without even leaving this room though, I can see the reason I did this, my motivation for all of these projects. And without leaving this room. So, of course, the first thing I would have to say is that it's because of all these people. I've been very blessed to have a very large number of good role models living here in Princeton. And first and foremost would be Mr. Cirillo, my principal from Riverside Elementary. He probably introduced me to most of this because I joined his orchid club in 4th grade. Anything else. I also joined the garden club at Riverside Elementary in 4th grade as well with Dorothy Mullet. And this introduced me to gardening. This introduced me to composting. I don't know if you noticed when they said this, but the school I did not build compost bins for was Riverside, because they have a compost heap about the size of a small car. And that's the reason I was introduced to composting and decided to do this project. Likewise, sitting here, I see another person who really introduced me to conservation. That's Steve Hiltner. I mean, I wonder if he recognizes me, because this was a long time ago when I was volunteering at Mountain Lakes with him on removing invasive species and planting native species. And also sitting here, standing here, I can see Mr. McRitchie, my old scoutmaster, who helped me develop my love of the outdoors. So just seeing these people here, I realized that this award really isn't me, but it's for all of the people who made this possible, and I want to thank them for this opportunity, because if they had not been there, I wouldn't be here. So thank you.
Well, good luck on your midterms. Given your presentation, I'm sure you did it very well. The next award goes to Kurt Talazar and Sally Curtis. Kurt Talazar and Sally Curtis received this Tazalar, I'm sorry. Kurt Tazalar and Sally Curtis received this award today in recognition of their inspired and inspiring work, clearing over 200 acres of trails during the heat of the summer at 2 of Princeton's nature preserves. Both Herrontown Woods and Autumn Hill Reservation had become inaccessible to the public, blocked by fallen trees and overgrown with invasive shrubs after years of neglect and massive storm damage. Armed with chainsaws and a can-do spirit, Mr. Tazalar and Ms. Curtis took matters into their own hands and reclaimed the trails for the community. Steve Hiltner, a local blogger, said, "Their passion and commitment to the task, putting in more than 350 hours, is a testament to the transformative power of community spirit." We are so happy to honor your good work this evening with the Sustainable Princeton Leadership Award.
It's gratifying to see and learn of the recipients here, the ingenuity that they have in perceiving a need and then acting on it and getting things done. And there's a variety of things that can be done. You know, so I thank you.
You're welcome.
I bicycled here tonight. So how I really got here tonight. Last summer I got a phone call from Steve Hiltner. He said, "Let's go down to Herrontown Woods and check it out." So I said, "Sure. I'll bring my tools along just in case there's something worth doing." Walking into it, it was obvious that it hadn't been maintained for about 10 years. There were major trees blocking paths. The jungle was taking over. The place was getting to be weird New Jersey. It just wasn't an inviting set of trails anymore. So I said to Sally and Steve, how about if we become the Friends of Herrontown Woods? Usually there's an established volunteer group, but sometimes you have to start one. They have adopt a highway programs, How about adopt a nature preserve? It helped that I work at night and could commit to going out there every afternoon, and as a school teacher, Sally had the summer off. I just couldn't stand the thought that people might be going down there and getting scared off, never to come back. I wanted it done now and not later. It's a 141-acre nature preserve that serves as a community resource, giving variety and convenience to local people wanting some outdoors in their lives. And through happenstance, it was falling short of that. So we got to work. It unfolded like a mystery. We'd do one section and move on to the next. Sometimes we'd find out that years ago they had started a trail and never finished it. Other trails were off the main beaten path and had become dormant. They had to be resurrected, and some of these turned out to be quite scenic. We trimmed back the overgrowth and especially went after the multiflora rose. I didn't want anybody getting stuck by those thorns. A well-maintained trail shouldn't have that nastiness. I began to regard the work as a creative venture, with an eye towards enhancing the visual and walking experience of the place. Boulders were to be highlighted, debris to be managed. I had an old map of the woods. I'd cross off each section as it was finished. It was a major victory getting up to the pipeline. We found a 30-foot cliff. We counted the rings on one down tree and estimated the age at 150 years. It's pre-Civil War old-growth forest. That's hard to find. I finally located the elusive Outer Blue Trail, which was in such remnants that I repeatedly lost my bearings walking back and forth on it. In the middle of all this, we took a side trip over to the adjacent Autumn Hill Preservation. It was in the same condition as Herrontown. It's not that big, so we took about 3 weeks and cleared it. We found the truck in the woods there.
This thing is just right in the woods. It's just sitting there. I mean, it's weird. You know, we have big debates on what it is. There's nothing on it. It's a relic.
The winter has opened up Vista in crazy ways. Suddenly you can see large buildings at PCB that were previously invisible. Part of the fun of this is in the exploring. DNR Greenway just put in trails through the All Saints Woods that connect to the Herrontown trails. And on the other side of those trails, there's a service road that leads up to Bun Drive. I never knew that before. The work isn't completely done. People have been telling me that the trails get muddy in the winter and spring. I said that I'd take a look at it when the time comes, and now that it's winter, it turns out they're right. There's some water engineering to do. The materials that you use for this don't come from Home Depot. You use the stones and logs that are laying around. It doesn't cost anything, it does the job, and it blends in with the scenery. It's all part of the process of upgrading Herrontown Woods. I've had notions of clearing the brush off the 19th century stone fences that line the woods. The farmers that assembled them were a hardy bunch. It's the working archaeology of another way of life. I had a fanciful idea of creating explanatory tablets written onto wood from downed trees, talking about ecological and earth concepts that you can see right before your eyes. Did you know that the huge boulders out there did not come from glaciers, but rather from molten earth processes? Glaciers never got this far south. And then my most ridiculous, fanciful idea yet. How about building an observation tower above the trees, out of those boulders? Imagine the vista, and imagine the ridiculous engineering and work that would go into that. But what a resource it would be, the tower in the woods. And finally, I think that one of these awards will soon go to Steve Hillner for his work on saving the Vellum House, which we are starting to see some headway on. Thank you.
I just want to say thanks. This is unexpected, and I'm excited because clearing the woods has been such a wonderful experience. And when Steve invited us to go to Herrontown Woods, I hadn't been there in 25 years when my oldest son was 6 years old. I remember walking through the woods with him and coming across this old cottage that was really run down. And I said, Matthew, I said, that's where Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother lived. And he said, I don't want to go over there, the wolf might be in there. And of course, you know, parents aren't supposed to do that to their kids, but it was really funny. And this summer, as we were working out in the woods, I saw this father and his two children walking along the path, and he was telling the same story about the Veblen cottage, only he was using a different analogy. So our desire is to create in Princeton what I saw 25 years ago in those woods. And that was a place that families can go. Young people can go. You can hike. You can walk your dog. I confess I used to steal from Herringtown Woods. I would pick up interesting leaves and sticks and pods, and I would take them back home and draw them. There's so much there for kids. I could see it as a fabulous nature center. Taking the Veblen House, building that into something. Something we want to keep in Princeton forever and have everyone be able to use. Thank you.
Our final award tonight goes to Gail Ullman. We present Gail Ullman with an award for distinguished service today in recognition of her many volunteer years working to balance the needs of the Princeton community with the needs of our environment. Appointed to the Princeton Environmental Commission in 1994, Gail Ullman often was a voice to preserve the Princeton landscape, tempering her concerns and that of her fellow environmentalists within the bounds of what was truly doable. When she was also appointed to the Regional Planning Board of Princeton to function as a liaison between the former borough and township, Gail was able to ensure a consistent environmental review of new construction in the municipality. This pioneering step ensures that new construction will always be vetted through an environmental lens, protecting our environment and our future. Gail has had a significant impact on our community's environment by helping to change the way things are done, especially in the area of sustainability, and by encouraging decision and policymakers to focus on the sustainable viability of Princeton. We are honored to present a Distinguished Service Award this evening to Ms. Gail Ullman.
Thank you all, and thank you especially to my team of friends who showed up. It's particularly gratifying to be noticed by Sustainable Princeton, which had its birth in the Environmental Commission, grew up in the planning office before it fledged and took off into its own world. And I've watched it from the beginning with great interest and admiration. Tonight, not everybody who spoke used the word stewardship, but if you listen carefully to what they were saying, they were accepting or have accepted stewardship in some form, sometimes on their own, sometimes with encouragement from others. And I guess I'd like to speak as someone who has never sort of gone out on their own, but who has worked within the municipality itself, within the structure of the at one time 2 towns, now 1 town, to perhaps just push ideas further. I can't always say that it was I who had the ideas. My background is as a book editor, which doesn't exactly qualify me as an environmental expert, but I am a gardener. And gardening tends to set you off, I think, in the right direction with the environment. And the connection between the Environmental Commission and the Planning Board has been, over the last 2 decades, I've either been on one or the other, or sometimes both, simultaneously, is in a way looking at a goal of stewardship, but in the larger sense of the town as a whole. What spaces are there to fill, who should be in them, what are the economic circumstances of the people, what effect will this building have on the economic circumstances of the people, who should live there? Should there be senior citizens living here? Should we have affordable housing? All of these are kind of a stewardship in another, another venue from the environmental one, but I guess I would claim that it's part of the same concern for the whole entity, that the whole entity works as a whole, that one part sustains the other, and that as we are gaining knowledge, and I hope I am able to, now that I know so much, work another 20 years or so, not likely, but I would like to, because we're learning a lot, and I think that whether you're working within the system or whether you are the kind of individual who works on the outside of the system, things need to be maintained over time. I mean, it may surprise you to learn that 15 or 20 years ago, Autumn Hill Reservation had an adopter who had cleaned all the paths, all the trails were beautiful. I walked it many times as a member of the Environmental Commission. But unless somebody is staying there and watching these things all the time, and I think that's where the institutions of our town play a specific role and a very important role. And I hope that people, both those who like to work from within and those who like to work from without, will at least have a conversation, have lots of conversations, so that we can all be doing the same things together.
So, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Diane Landis. I'm the executive director of this wonderful organization in this wonderful town. And I was searching for a quote to kind of collect all our thoughts together and all of the wonderful work that everybody's doing. And I found a quote by Henry Ford that was, "If everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself." And I was going to use that quote to say, see, next year we really have to work together. And after sitting here and listening to everybody speak tonight, I realized, wow, we have really come together so much as a community around sustainability. I know we were all out there, but I think having everybody in this room and talking in such a passionate way and just really motivating us to continue to work together is wonderful. And so I'll offer that quote as what we've been working on and hopefully what will lead us into the next year. Since this is kind of like the Academy Awards of Sustainability, I get to say some thank yous too. So first of all, I have to, I really kind of pushed my family to be here tonight because they've gone through a long year with me. We became a nonprofit, moved and are housed really and supported and cared for by the town. And it's been a big year for me, a big learning curve, especially in budgeting. Thank you, husband Bobby, and others, and my kids. It's been a crazy year, but I just wanted to publicly thank you for supporting me and all the great things you guys do. And also, a couple more of those Academy Award thank yous go to Andrea Malcolm, my partner, who is incredibly hardworking. Her nature oftentimes grounds me when I'm like, oh, then we can do this and over here and we'll do this and keep working, straight and narrow, which is what I need. But the two of us are a great team. Alexandra Barcohen, who wrote most of what you heard tonight on the awards write-ups, and is just just full of energy and dedication, and she has the ability to turn any party into a zero-waste event. She drags that green bin no matter where she goes, whether it's school or homes or whatever, and gets people to really think about how to integrate it into their lives. Anne-Marie Lyles, whose vision and clear-headed leadership is truly a gift to our organization. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Stephanie Chorney, who you've heard a couple people speak about. She works as a pediatrician at night, so she can kick butt. And I even asked my kids, can I say kick butt? But I have to say that during the day. And she gets us all just focused, this town has to have a vision. We have to do zero waste. We have to be a model of sustainability. And I really love our long conversations on the phone, so don't stop calling me, because we'll keep going. Princeton, the Princeton Public Library has been a great supporter all throughout the years that we've been working with them on the Environmental Film Festival and other things. The Whole Earth Center has been behind us every step of the way and let us have our monthly meetings there. And McCaffrey's has has been supportive in offering whatever they can do to help us move our vision forward as a town. So I want to say collaboration is key in 2014. And I just want to do 10 quick New Year's resolutions that I want to share with you. This is what our kind of visionary volunteers have come together to say about what we should be doing as a town. So the first thing we saw is recycling bins on every downtown sidewalk. They're coming, we hear, they're coming. Really pretty ones too, aesthetic, good aesthetics. A green curbside organic waste bin in front of every home and business. 100 energy assessments conducted by June of 2014. And at least 25 Princeton homes completing their recommended energy upgrades. We're at 65 homes and it's only January. So we're gonna make that and break it. A community that buys local first because it's good for our economy and the environment. Fresh, locally grown fruits and vegetables on the plates of every public school student. Less plastic water bottles at our public schools and an uptick in recycling at all our schools. 100% of shoppers using those beautiful recycled, reusable bags rather than single-use plastic bags that clog our oceans and sit for years in our landfill. A sustainable vision for the town, shared and acted upon by the government, schools, businesses, and residents. Princeton earning silver certification as a safe, sustainable community from Sustainable Jersey. 50 new Sustainable Princeton volunteers to help us reach our goals as a town, and a vibrant, walkable, bikeable, earth-friendly, sustainable community to live in. Thank you all.